Hello, I'm Brad Phillips. I'm here with Puppy Steps Training, and we're going to be doing Chewy's demonstration for you today. He's here in the crate. We're going to let him out in a few minutes. But before that, I just want to talk to you a little bit about a few things first. One, we are very excited to send him to you. The past couple weeks, he's just been doing really well. I think you're going to be happy with him. He's a sweetheart. He's got a fun little character to him, and I think he's going to be just a wonderful dog. So before we let him out and we get started, just a couple things that I do like to remind everyone, and that is that he is a puppy, and so there is going to be, this growing period, some maturing. He might try and test the waters, but the important thing is he grows, and as he matures, the consistency is going to be the secret ingredient right there. Make sure that you are consistent in rewarding and correcting. When he does something good, reward him. When he does something bad, correct him. Now, when we reward him, of course, we use the word okay. That is our marker, so it marks the correct behavior, and our release word, and so it releases him from a stay. And then no is our correction term, no or nope. And we use that regardless of what the behavior is. If he does something simple and he breaks a stay, I'll just tell him no and I'll have him do it again. But I'll always make sure that I end on that correct behavior. If he does something a little bit more serious, like he jumps up on me, he tries to steal food, I'm going to adjust my body language and my voice fluctuation to really deliver more of a meaningful no. We only have one type of correction, or physical correction, that we use, and that is a leash correction, and that's just 2 quick pops on the leash. You're basically just making your presence known and accompanying that with a corrector, whether that be no, easy, or off. Those are 3 command words for if he does something wrong. And I'll discuss each of those in detail in a little bit. But we will cover all 5 steps. We'll talk about socialization just for a minute, and then we'll talk about our manners, our obedience commands, our house training, our leash training. And so to start with that socialization, now that's probably the most important thing to me. I like to make sure that I can expose my dog to as many new situations as possible, but doing it in a controlled environment, making sure that they're focused on me, that I can ease any anxiety or any type of timidness that comes along with those behaviors. By doing so, I can make sure that there's a positive experience in those uncomfortable environments, and that way you won't have any anxiety issues or aggression or timidness. And so we made sure to expose him to different animals, different people, places, sounds, just a variety of new situations. But like I said, doing that in a controlled environment where we can make sure that we can somewhat control the factors around us and help him in his response. We also do that throughout the training, taking him to new places and doing commands, getting him on new textures, having different distractions. You'll hear me use the acronym 3Ds a couple times throughout this demo, and that's important when socializing as well as adding it in with the training. And those are distance, duration, and distraction. And so adding those three things when doing commands and stays and introducing new things are going to be critical. So we are going to move into our manners section now. We'll start with our gates and our doorways. So when I let him out of the crate, as well as when we go through a house door, I do expect him to stay. That should be an automatic behavior. However, if he does try and break, I might simply close the door, lift my leg and block him. It wouldn't be until he was really persistent on pushing his way out that I would actually tell him to stay. Like I said, for the most part it is an automatic behavior, so I'll let him out now. Okay, good boy, good boy. I will show you the house door when we go outside. So what he's doing now is actually our next manner, and so we call this his greeting. Anytime I call him to me, come here, I expect him to sit before I give him any attention. That does a couple things for you. One, it makes sure that he's not jumping. He's going to be planted on the ground. He's not going to be wrapping you up with a leash, as well as it gets his eye contact. And you know that once you have his eye contact, you have 100% of his attention. and he makes really great eye contact with you. So look for that and expect that greeting. For some reason he doesn't start presenting yet, you can ask him to sit. But for the most part, anytime, come here, Chewy. When he comes over to me, he will sit. Good boy, good boy. So next we'll talk about his mealtime manners. And so anytime I feed him, I do expect him to hold a sit stay. And so where he is sitting there already on his bed, I'll just ask him to stay. Now when we work on these stays, we work on what we call the 3 Ds, and that's distance, duration, and distraction. By adding those 3 things, you're going to really build a solid stay. And talking is a huge distraction, of course, duration being time and distance, whether it be him in the food bowl or me and him. But really build those stays. Okay, good boy, good boy. Now, when he eats, I do like to make sure that he doesn't have any food aggression, and so handling him while he eats is important. Putting my hands down in the food bowl. Sometimes I'll even throw some treats in there, just make it positive with me being right here. And make sure that he is relaxed when he's eating. Yeah, good boy. And he might not be too hungry. We did feed him this morning. I was only giving him just a little bit there so I could show you. When we do feed him, I give him a cup and a half of food morning and night. Usually in the morning it's around 7:30. At night we try and do it as close to 6 o'clock as possible. That gives him some time before we put him to bed to really clear his system. Oh, buddy. Now, going along the same lines of when I was feeding him, I like to handle him. I like to do that just on a regular basis, both with grooming. I like to make sure I'm handling his ears, his paws, his tail, just anywhere that could be sensitive to a dog. I want to make sure that there's no sensitivity or aggression attached, and if there was, we'd take care of it. We also like to handle him while he's chewing on. We use bully sticks or toys, just make sure that there's once again, no aggression towards us. The one time aggression can be mistaken is with small children. And so I do make a rule that anytime my dog is out and kids are playing with him, that they have a toy. Something that he can grab onto, it diverts his attention. If the kids get nervous, they can throw it. And that's just going to save you from having an accident happen. And he does like to play. And he likes to take his toys to his bed. Huh? Good boy, good boy. Huh? Oh, that's a good boy. That's a good boy. Now, drop it. While I have his toy out, we'll talk about drop it just for a second. Drop it, I expect him to freely give up the toy. If he has something a little bit more important to him, or something that's really rewarding, like a bully stick, sometimes he's not just going to spit it out on the floor. It's just going to be him basically letting me take it. So come here. We'll see if I can get him to hold on to it just a little bit longer. And I'll just ask him to drop it. Drop it. Good boy. And I want him to give it up. I want to make sure, especially with a soft toy like this, he does just freely give it up. So I never want to have to pull a toy from him. Especially these soft ones, teeth can get caught in them and you end up pulling out a tooth or causing some harm that way. Come here. If he does have something that he doesn't want to give up, one, I'll just hold it really still, and so he's not allowed to pull it, he's not allowed to play with it. If I can take it on both sides, that's even better. He's just going to end up spitting it out. Come here. If he didn't, I would just hold it, and I would turn my knuckles in so to pinch his lips against his canines, just causing just a little bit of discomfort. You don't have to push real hard, but generally he'll just spit it out. If he had something that he really didn't want to give up, I would just stick my thumb onto his tongue, and he'll open his mouth as wide as he can, and he'll just spit it out. Come on, buddy. But for the most case, I should be able just to take it and ask him, drop it. Good boy, and he should give it up. Good boy. Good boy. Good boy. Now, we have one other manner that deals with his mouth, and then just gently, come here. And so I want to make sure that he is very cautious taking food from me. And so if he's real excited, like he is right now, I'll tell him it before I even present the food. But I'll just tell him gently. And I want him to be very cautious taking the food out of my hand. The other thing that's important there is I will always give him the treat in the palm of my hand. That way I can cover it with my thumb if I need to, or if he were to lunge up at my hand, I could just pull it back. And it's just a natural reaction to close your fist and pull your hand back. I'll never give a treat to him between my thumb and forefinger. That way you're just kind of asking him to bite your fingers. So always in the palm of my hand, and I'll just tell him gently. And you should be very cautious. Good boy. I should never feel his teeth. Good boy, huh? Good boy. So the next two manners we'll talk about are going to be really important during this transition period, because he's going to have to learn to respect you and to respect your area. And so the first one we'll talk about is jumping, in which Chewy has been a very jumpy dog, and so we've spent a lot of time working on that. And so we have taught him the command off. If he were to try and jump up on me, or jump up on the bed, or the couch, I'll tell him off and expect him to get down. That's one of those times that you can grab him by the leash and give him that simple leash correction and accompany it with off. Now it is important with that, if he were running towards you and you thought he was going to jump, it's important that you never step backwards. As soon as you step backwards, you're encouraging the jump, and it becomes a game. Instead, I'll always step into him. That way I'm restricting the space. A lot of times it's going to throw him off enough that he won't jump, but also I can step into him and bring up my knee if he were to try and jump and block him. Good boy. Huh? Now, dogs do have this pack mentality, and so they thrive off of an order. And so you're going to establish that leadership or that alpha role, but sometimes there develops a role where he thinks that he is above a member of your family. If that happens, that's going to be the person that he does want to jump up on or steal food from. And so in that case, if you were to jump up on him, I would take him by the leash and I'd have that person call him over. And I'd walk him up, and if he were to jump, I'd give him that leash correction, tell him off, and I'd turn around and walk away. That way you're really, you're not allowing him to get to that person, as well as he's not even getting any attention. And so it's kind of a double negative there. He's getting the correction as well as he's not being able to get to what he wants to. And so I would do that 3 or 4 times, or up until he approaches them and he sits. Once he sits, he's presenting that greeting. Go ahead and make it really rewarding at that point so that he's understanding that behavior. The next one is chewing, and so chewing has to happen. He's in the middle of teething, and so he has to chew. So for that manner, we train on a base of avoiding and replacing. If I can avoid giving him free access to shoes, to toys, things I don't want him to chew up, that is my best protection against having a disaster happen. But it's not really possible in your home. There's always something he can chew on. And so that's where replacing comes in. If he went up and he started chewing on a pillow or a stuffed animal, I would tell him no, and I would replace it with something of equal texture. So if he's chewing on something soft and plush, I'd give him something like a toy, a soft toy. If he started chewing on a table leg or something hard, I'd give him a bully stick, give him something hard that he can really get into. If for some reason he wanted to chew on shoelaces, I'd give him a rope. And so you're just replacing based on texture. Good boy. Good boy. So that's the first part of chewing. The second, and probably the most common cause of all chewing disasters, is boredom. And there are kind of 2 sides to boredom. One, you have a downtime, you're reading a book, watching a show, or maybe you're gone and he's left alone. He's going to get bored and he's going to go find something to chew on. So in that case, I would just give him something to chew on, like this bully stick. Give him something to preoccupy himself. And that brings in the second part of boredom. If he was chewing on this and he got up and left, I would immediately take it away because he's gotten bored with his own object. And so by me taking it away, you're going to preserve a little bit of the excitement that's there, as well as he's not going to get so used to it lying around that he's going to go find something new to chew on. And so have a handful of toys lying around that you can replace, but don't give him just unlimited access to his own things, or to your things at that. So now we'll jump into his commands. We'll start with come and watch me, and then we'll go over sit, sit, stay, down, down, stay, crate, and go to bed. So first I'm going to ask him to drop this. Good boy. Now, the first one is just to get his eye contact, and so we'll see if he'll look away at all. Watch me. Okay, good boy. And so yeah, the watch me command, all I'm looking for is that eye contact. And that's a really easy one to practice. You can either tap like I did or wait for him to get distracted and throw that in. That is a great command. Watch me. Okay. To have as basically a backup to come, to make sure that you have something that's going to stop and get his attention on you. Watch me. Good boy. And you can do that real easily. But I also have started using his name in that same way. Chewy. Good boy. Saying it similar to watch me, but expecting him to look up at me. And so that's all I'm looking for is that eye contact. So the second command is really hard to show in the barn. Come here. I'll just have him sit. But is the come command. And I'm going to lead with his name for the sake of getting his attention on me. He's like, Chewy, come! Good boy. And of course, all I want is him to come to me. I'm going to use that command really happily. Anytime you use that command, there's always got to be a positive reward with it. Now, a reward doesn't have to be food. We use treats, we use toys, we use compassion. But with that come command, you got to make sure that it's always positive. You never call your dog to come to punish them. Because if you do, they're going to stop coming to you. And the come command is one that people burn quite frequently because of that. You call them to come and they either get put in a crate or they get, it's time to leave the park. It's something negative that makes it so that they don't want to come anymore because they know that something like that's going to happen. And so because of that, I like to keep a rule of 10 to 1. And that's 10 repetitions of the come command to give him a reward of some sort for that one time that you have to call him to come and maybe you don't have a food reward or it is time to get put up for the evening or leave the park, something like that. And so, for instance, if I'm sitting in the backyard, I'll take a handful of treats and I'll call him to come, give him a treat, let him go again so he can continue to run around. It's really rewarding. And then you can do that 9, 10 times. For that one time you call him to come and you go inside. Other than that, the other reason it gets burned is because of overuse. People call their dog to come when he's just a few feet away from them, and so it becomes too casual. So instead, if we're in the house, I can just come here, something like that to get his attention instead of using the come command. That way you're preserving the integrity of that command. Oh, buddy, you're sure sniffing a lot, huh? So the next few commands do have hand signals. And so sit is just a scoop over the nose. Down, I'll take my hand flat and go down. And then stay is a stop sign. And so I'll show you those. Chewy, sit. Down. Okay, good boy, good boy. So they're sitting down. Now the stays, we have both a sit and a down stay. And so I will show you those. I'll turn them around here. Come here. Sit. Down. Stay. Okay, good boy. Good boy. So there's his down stay. Now I'll show you his sit stay. Sit. Stay. Now, if he is in a sit stay, I don't care if he lays down. However, if he's in a down stay, he's never allowed to come up. Okay, good boy. Good boy. And of course he has good puppy stays, but don't be satisfied with it. Always seek to improve those and build them up. Also add those 3Ds, that's distance, duration, and distraction. Really build those stays. Now the next two commands don't necessarily have hand signals, but I always put myself in a position where he can read my body language. And so, for instance, Chewy, go to bed. I'll just step and point. I don't care what position he's in as long as all 4 paws are on the bed. Nope. And he is expected to stay until released. Okay, and where he did break, I'll have him do it again. Go to bed. Okay, good boy. Good boy. And just like that, or very similar, is a crate command. And I'll just tell him, Chewy, crate. For the crate command, I will give him the reward when he goes in, because some of the time he will be shutting that and locking him up. Okay, and he's also expected to stay on that as well. Crate. Good boy. Okay. So the crate command, just like the come command, I would keep a lot of repetitions and keep it very positive. You don't want to just use that command when you lock him up. Otherwise, he will get to the point where he doesn't want to go in the crate anymore because he knows that you are going to lock him up for a few hours. So with the crate training, we spent a lot of time really working on the crate. I mean, early on he was having a lot of accidents in there, just really didn't like being in the crate. And so we have spent a ton of time making sure that he is comfortable in there and that we're not going to have accidents. And so for the last week and a half, we haven't had any accidents in the crate. He's slept through the night. Usually we put him to bed about 10 o'clock at night. We get him out between 6:30 and 7, as well as he can go for 4-hour blocks during the day without needing a break. Now with that being said, this transition period that's coming up as he enters into your home often causes them to have to go to the bathroom more frequently, as well as they will get a loose stool. And so if he does start to whine in the crate, if he's been in there for over 30 minutes and he starts to whine, he may just need to go to the bathroom. And so at that point, I would let him out, put him on a leash, and then take him straight out to go to the bathroom. If he goes, great, give him a treat, put him right back in the crate. If he doesn't go, just put him right back in the crate. But make sure he doesn't get away with getting out and playing if he whines. Otherwise, he'll start whining all the time just because he thinks he can get out. If he starts whining immediately when you put him in there, you can give him a bully stick or cover it with a blanket, but he's just whining because he wants to be out with you, and you have to ignore that. It should only last maybe a minute or two, and then he'll calm down and he'll go back to bed. But really, just pay attention if he starts to whine, give him a break if needed, but he's done a ton better in the crate. I'm really happy with that. So now where he rang the bell, we are going to go outside. Okay, outside. Good boy. Good boy. Okay. Okay, of course I make him wait at the door, and okay releases him in or out. Now he did go to the bathroom, so that's great, and that's perfect because that's what we're going to talk about now. And I'm actually going to teach you how to transition the bell, really kind of a simple way that I like to do it. There is more than one way to do this, and so if you have any issues, let me know. I can give you directions on how to do it another way. But I am going to show you how to do it my favorite way, which I start with what's called targeting the bell. And so I'm going to take just a couple treats and I'll break them up real small. And all I'm looking for is him to reach out and touch the bell in my hand right now. So I'll just hang it here, and I'll stare at the bell. Okay. And the first time, I mean, he just barely touched that, but I will reward it. Okay, good boy. Okay, good boy. And I'll reward it every time he touches it. Okay, good boy. Good boy. You're making it really rewarding. Okay, good boy. Good boy. And then once he's touching it pretty persistently out of your hand, then I come over and I'll put it on the door. I'll call him over and I'm going to continue to stare at the bell, but I'll reward him every time that he touches it off the door now. Now I'm just going to stare at the bell, but if he is, you know, he's sitting a little ways away, and if he lays down like that, I can, come here. Okay, good boy, good boy. Get him a little closer and let him ring it. Come here. Okay, good boy, good boy. Okay, good boy. Okay, good boy. Okay, good boy. Now I'm going to switch up the wording just a little bit. Okay, outside. Good boy. Start emphasizing the word outside. Okay, outside. Good boy. Do this a handful of times. Okay, outside, good boy. And this time I'm going to take him back out, even though he just barely went. Okay, outside, good boy, good boy. Okay. Okay. Now at your house, I would walk right back over and get him to ring it. Okay, outside. Have him ring it 2 or 3 more times, then walk and go back outside. Do that 3 or 4 more times. It's important that you get plenty of repetition of him seeing the bell, ringing it, going outside. You just want to make sure that he knows where the bell is in your house, and then it means the same thing as it does here. When I do take him outside, I give him about a minute or 2, let him sniff around. When he goes, I'll tell him, good outside, good boy. Gets him lots of praise, a treat, just make it really positive for him. And like I said, if you need a different way to transition the bell, let me know. That way's my favorite. It kind of allows him to really think about it, and he's really processing what he's doing. Even if it takes a little bit of time, I know it's uncomfortable to stand and just stare at the bell, but it's really allowing him to think about it, and it's ingraining in his memory. I did take the bells off the door now, because after you do that, he will want to ring them quite a bit, just because he's getting food, he's getting treats, and so I took them off just so we could talk. Like I said, he did go that first time out when he rang it on his own, and so I know that he won't have to, or he doesn't have to go right this moment. So a couple other things with the house training. One, I would keep a small leash attached to him. That way, if you did need to grab him and get him outside, you could do that. Because if you do witness him squatting in your house, you want to get him out as quick as possible. If I did see that, I would stomp, I'd clap and go, no, 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 just grab him, rush him outside. And then if he finishes outside, I'll give him a treat, and it's very positive if he goes outside. If you don't see him go to the bathroom in your house, there's nothing you can do about it. And so that's why the one thing that I can't stress enough with the house training is you provide 100% supervision. That's the most important thing you can do. And that doesn't mean that your kids can take him, or I would make sure that it's you, that you focus on him over the next couple weeks. Now the exception there is if you need a break, use the crate as an asset. Put him in the crate. He'll be fine in there for a couple hours, because you really have to give him that 100% supervision. I've had people tether their dog to him just so that he can't kind of escape and go to the bathroom. I've had people block off part of their house, but it's really going to take up to a month for him to be comfortable in your house and know the ropes. And so for the next month, you really have to make sure that you're giving him that feedback and that you are keeping track of him. I've had a lot of people that follow that little routine and never have accidents in their house. But I've also had people that bring their dog home and just think, well, he should be house trained, so here you go. And they give him free rein, and that's when problems happen. He's done really well with the house training, but the transition just throws things off, makes him have to go to the bathroom more frequently. So really, 100% supervision. Also, just a couple things to look for. If he starts sniffing real heavily or doing circles, he probably has to go to the bathroom. Or if he wakes up from a nap, whether that be on his bed or whether he's been in the crate for a couple hours. At that point, I just like to take him out. When I do take him out, take him over, let him ring the bell, and take him outside. Now, the one thing I did fail to mention is right when you do that little exercise with the bells, after you've taken him out a few times, I would set a 30-minute timer, because you do want to stay ahead of his pee schedule. And for the first day that you have him, probably 2 days that you have him, I would take him to the bell every 30 minutes. The exception there is if he is in the crate. You don't need to pull him out of the crate to go to the bell. But you just really want to stay ahead. And during that time, I'd walk him over, stare at the bells, let him ring him, go outside. In a couple days, start to build that back up. Go to 45 minutes to an hour. 2 hours is our standard. I know that he can hold himself for 2 hours in the house without needing a break. I know that he can actually go longer, but for the next month I wouldn't take that chance. I would make sure that he goes out at least every 2 hours. I would also recommend probably monitoring his water intake. I would probably control that and give it to him with meals, and then 3 or 4 times throughout the day. But you don't want him just to guzzle a whole bunch of water, because he's already going to have to go to the bathroom more frequently, and adding more water, of course, is going to have to make him go more. But if you have any questions with the house training, please give me a call, and we'll make sure that we take care of it. And any other questions, once again, give me a call. With that, now we will talk about his leash work, and we'll actually go outside and show you that walk. So with the leash work, we have 2 commands. First is easy. If he starts to pull, I'll give him that leash correction. I'll tell him easy, and I expect him to put the slack back in the leash. The second is let's go, just signifying we're moving. Now we do take him on 2 types of walks. The first is a long leash or an off-leash walk. During that walk, we like to take him up into the hills or to the lake or the river, just somewhere that they can run around, sniff, and be a dog. It's really great for their mental health. When I do that, I really like to work on the come command, and so I'll take a bunch of treats, and every minute or 2, I'll call him to come, give him a treat, let him go again. So it's real rewarding. He's still getting to run around and do what he wants, but also you're keeping him close and you're working on that come command. The second type of walk is our attention walk, and that's the one that I'm actually going to go outside and show you. During that, I want him by my side, keeping the majority of his focus up on me, not pulling, keeping a loose leash. And so we'll walk outside and I'll show you that. Let's go. So I do like to have him sit before we start a walk, just to get his focus, and then I'll tell him, let's go. This is exactly what I want, this loose leash. Let's go. That J shape, and his focus up on me. If he started to pull, I tell him easy, and I expect him to put the slack back in the leash. I'll show you that again. Let's go. Periodically, I will still give him a treat when he looks up at me, just making it rewarding for keeping his focus on me. I hope you really enjoy him. We sure have. And keep us updated. Thanks.